And on a much bigger level, the Taliban's taken an absolute sledgehammer to women's rights. For all the many legitimate criticisms of America's occupation, women did make huge gains there. In 2001, there were few, if any, girls in school, and by 2020, girls made up roughly 40% of all students. That same year, Afghanistan's parliament had a higher percentage of women than the US Congress did. But now, they've essentially gone back to zero. But much more than that, Taliban decrees have tried to control nearly every aspect of women's lives, ordering that they shouldn't leave their homes unless necessary.
Okay, again, I'm not going to sit here and act like life under American occupation was better, okay? Life under American occupation was only a little bit better, certainly in the Green Zone, okay, Kabul and the like, while that same occupation was like bombing the shit out of every fucking area, and still continues to do so from time to time. But not only that, but also we're literally working with the same Taliban leaders half the fucking time, only until those dudes would end up shooting the U.S. military members that were there to, I don't know, protect the fucking poppy fields. But also, once again, this notion is like, this is kind of like a fucking, this is doing propaganda for American imperialism. If you don't set the standard back to a time when Afghanistan had some level of autonomy, but was punished for, not for its like anti-Islamist attitude, punished for its allegiances to the USSR, you're just wrong. Like, you're not telling the full story. It's crazy. I'm sorry. Like, you can't talk about Afghanistan without going further back in history.
And that only women who can't be replaced by men will be allowed to keep working. In fact, one of the only areas women can work is in healthcare, because there are some situations where men aren't allowed to treat women as patients. This midwife, for example, is still working in a hospital, but she is furious about...
Yeah, I mean, this is the same fucking picture over and over again, all over the fucking place. But anywhere you go in MENA and also in Asia as well, anywhere you go, the same story plays itself out. 60s, 70s, you got, if you're talking exclusively from a very narrow framework of like women's liberation, you know, Western adjacent values as signifiers of women's liberation, then yeah, Iran has the same shit. Egypt has the same shit. Afghanistan has the same shit. All of these fucking countries, Iraq has the same shit. Every single one of these fucking MENA countries and Afghanistan as well has the exact same imagery that you can point to. It's just the truth. These are countries, but prior to U.S. involvement. You can't blame the U.S. for all of Afghanistan's problems right now. It's true the U.S. likes to participate in proxy wars, Afghanistan included, but the Korean War was a proxy war between U.S. and China, and South Korea was able to make progress. Some problems in Afghanistan go back centuries. Interesting that you mentioned that while I'm literally showing you Afghanistan, post-50s, and destroying the narrative that you're trying to set. But also very interesting that you brought up fucking South Korea and North Korea. I wonder why North Korea is in this fucking dire, desolate circumstances that they're in, even though in the immediate aftermath, they were able to recover better than South Korea in the aftermath of the Korean War, despite having the imperialist forces destroy, bomb, possibly even use like germ warfare, and destroy 80% of the fucking buildings in North Korea. That's a fucking ridiculous take, man. That is a absolutely preposterous take. North Korea's death and destruction came at the hands of the destruction of the USSR. When they're only opening into the fucking real world and markets was through the USSR. Every single city, 40% to 90% of every single city in North Korea was reduced to rubble. Also, South Korea's development came at the cost of having a military dictatorship and being another American client state. They'll allow you to develop if you are America's dog, okay? The idea that you can't blame the top global hegemonic power for all the death and destruction that it caused is silly as fuck. Such a bullshit narrative to spin from these freak Westos. They don't see economic situation, only no headscarf, no skirt, no liberation. No, but like, That's why I said, even from a hyper narrow and very specific form of like Western adjacent values being a form of like female liberation or women's liberation, even on that front, they lose. Even on that front, they are completely incorrect. Because it's not like Afghanistan was always this way. What do I always say? What do I always fucking say? Countries that get invaded by imperial powers always are going to turn reactionary, right-wing, hyper-nationalistic. Okay? Doesn't matter if it's Russia invading Ukraine, that is going to cause an incredible amount of nationalist uprisings. Doesn't matter if it's fucking Afghanistan. This is what happens when America involves themselves in your internal affairs. What about Vietnam, though? Vietnam was a victory. What do you mean? One of the few examples of successfully purging imperialist forces. And also, not only was it an example of successfully purging imperialist forces, but like Vietnam still suffered. It still suffers drastically. Anyway, so there you go. I just wanted to show you this so you understand.